This setup back here will be good for many, many years to come. Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the series on the 1984 Orient Red wagon. And today I'm gonna get the car out of the shop, just do some basic cleaning and pressure washing. Then I'm gonna install a hood pad, and then we're going to start on the rear SLS suspension, the self-leveling system. So let's go ahead and get started. Electric pressure washer here, and I'm just going to pop off all the wheels, go around and clean real good under everything. That way it's, you know, not dirty when I get up on the lift. Now, what I use to do this, first we're going to degrease the engine compartment, and you need to dilute this with water, but this is super heavy duty degreaser. And hey Thomas, and you can you dilute it with water. They sell that at Harbor Freight. It's great for degreasing engine compartments. And then this stuff, we call it bleach white. It says it's tire cleaner, but if you notice down here, removes brake dust, grease, grime. This stuff is great for spraying in the wheel wells or on suspension or under the car to clean off any gunk under the car. You spray it and you let it sit for a couple of minutes. So let's go ahead and start that process and then get it back on the lift. Now, when I degrease the engine, I put pieces of plastic over the fenders. That way no overspray from the degrease gets on you know, the outer fenders. I really don't think it will hurt it, but I just don't like that degreaser getting on the paint. But I'll just hold that up here. Hey Thomas. Alright guys, you can see what this looks like now. It's never been cleaned under here. And normally I clean after I do the suspension, but this time we're just going to go ahead and do it before. So we're going to coat everything with the bleach white. That's what we call it, bleach white. I think it's bleach white or whatever. But and then we're going to let that sit for a little while. Then we're going to clean that off. Now, we're replacing the, you know, rotors and calipers, so I don't really care about that. And we're going to put some new shocks in here too. But we're going to just get this wheel well nice and clean. So let's let that soak, and let's go ahead and hit the degreaser on the engine compartment now. And guys, keep in mind, this is, you know, this is not a gas engine. So when you're pressure washing it, the pressure washer is just electric, and it's not very powerful. So it's not very many PSI, but you're not going to hurt anything. You know, this covers your turbo, and there's not really any areas. Obviously, don't like stick the pressure washer right in the alternator. But other than that, you're really not going to hurt anything. So I like to get up here in front of the engine real good, and also on the inner fender wheel wells. And that's really it. This one, this is not really a crazy dirty engine. So let's let that soak for a minute and go back to the wheel well. All right guys, check that out. That's all the original paint up in there. All the grime came right off the spring. That looks absolutely fantastic. Can you believe that's 40 years old? Now some stuff is kind of stuck on there. There's some like road grime, but that looks fantastic. Now it's going to be much nicer to work in here and disassemble everything. That's been soaking long enough. The degreaser up on the engine. So let's go ahead and spray this off now. This engine compartment actually looks pretty incredible. Yes, I'm gonna re-zinc plate it, but look how bright the original zinc is. I mean, it's almost as bright as when it left the factory. But we're gonna make it, you know, absolutely brand new looking again. But it is pretty damn good right now. And see how the inner fender well is cleaned up, and then down here on the front of the engine, see how clean it is down here. I don't know if you guys can see, there's not like a lot of grease buildup down there now. Look at this injection pump over here. Look how clean that is. That degreaser works great. Now I've got to go around the car and take off all the other wheels and work my way around, and then we're going to get it back into the shop where we can start work on it. All right, here we are on the rear wheel. I just want to show you the before and after. So here's the before. All right, guys, and there we go. Look how nice that cleaned up. All the original factory paint is still under there. And you can see too where they would spray the primer along the rocker panel and, you know, whip the paint gun around the corner right there. You have the original overspray right there. Just amazing original condition. All right, guys, almost forgot. We want to get the old original hood pad off. And the best way to do that, these are just like, you know, packing blankets. You just lay these down over the engine compartment. That way you won't get any of it in the engine compartment. We'll tuck it up in here like that. And then you just use a paint scraper. And you can literally just scrape that right off of there. Now, you don't have to get all the glue off. You can see there's residual glue. Actually, this doesn't have much glue on it, but you don't have to get all the glue off, because when you respray the fresh glue over it, that's fine. You don't have to go crazy trying to get every little piece of glue off. Yeah, this is an original hood pad for sure. Okay, it's time to go ahead and pull this back into the shop. We'll reapply the hood pad inside, and then we'll get it up on the lift and start suspension disassembly. All right, guys, I'm going to reapply the hood pad, and I noticed something on this car. If you notice that original hood pad, sometimes on the hood pads you see a foil square right here, and from what I've learned about these cars, that foil square was only on the 85 California models because your turbo was right up top right here. On all the other models, the turbo is down below under the air cleaner, and I think they came with hood pads that didn't have that foil cutout or that foil protection, that square. So I got a hood pad that matched exactly to that original one we just took off the car, and you can see it doesn't have that foil heat shield because the original hood pad did not have one. So I want to put this on here so it matches exactly like the original we just took off. Now you can see I have the engine covered with packing blankets. I use super trim adhesive. You can use this, or there's some other stuff with like a brush you can brush on. This stuff works great. It is 08090 super trim adhesive. You put half the can on the hood pad and half the can on the hood. Also, I put a little mark right here with a white paint pen. And on the hood pad, there's a little notch right here. You probably can't see it in the camera. There's just a little V notch. And you line up that notch with the mark when we're assembling it. That way it centers it correctly. And this stuff's nasty, guys. You don't want to get it on you. All right, that stuff is kind of stringy. You can see it's hanging down a little bit, but it'll get pushed up there when we put the pad on. Now, we'll let this sit for like 5 minutes until it gets tacky. And then Jim's gonna help me and we're gonna lift this pad up and it will stick immediately. There's not a lot of margin for error. All right. Okay, I'm right on the mark. Try to go from the center all the way down. All right. Now, there you go. Now try to wipe to the left, or to your side. Yeah, there you go. And you wipe from the center out, guys. All right, let me get over here. I would say that's about as perfect as you can get.
Looks good.
All right. We nailed it on that hood pad. Got it perfectly centered and that looks really good. I know the shop light is shining in the camera here. But, so we're done with that part. Okay guys, I think what we want to do first is just the SLS system and axles on the rear of the car. But here are all the parts that I've ordered for this vehicle. Something may be missing or I may not need something, but this is what my initial thoughts are. And so we'll start over here with the SLS. This is a genuine Mercedes. Original, new old stock, in the box, never used. That's an SLS leveling valve. So we're going to replace that leveling valve. Now, Cortico was the OEM supplier for the accumulators. And Cortico has stopped, or they're out of stock. I don't know if they've stopped making them. So I called the Classic Center and had these shipped in from Germany. And there we go. From Germany. There's two of them, one in this box. Let's see, the axles. These are genuine Mercedes axles. I just had these rebuilt on February 6th. So, I don't know, like a week ago. Just picked them up from CV Source. CV Source does outstanding work. Always have your original axles rebuilt. Let's go over here. So, this is interesting. So, Mercedes no longer has the left and right tie rods. However, Limforder was the OEM, supplier, and so I looked at Limforder, and Limforder has the left and right tie rod. There's tie rod right there. But then on the engine mounts, Limforder also made engine mounts. However, I checked, and Limforder is out of stock, and they're unavailable. So I called the Classic Center and I asked if they had engine mounts, and they sent me some old stock, new old stock engine mounts. And I asked them who made these, and they actually told me Limforder. So I guess these were made for Mercedes by Limforder. So we're seeing some strange stuff happen with parts. For example, Mercedes has the Limforder engine mounts and Limforder doesn't. But Limforder has the tie rods and Mercedes doesn't. So that's kind of interesting. Now here is a transmission mount. This is new old stock. There's the Mercedes part number right there with the Mercedes logo. Let's see, here's the Mercedes. I got these belts from Mercedes. Here's the oil filter. I'm sorry, the transmission filter. There's the transmission gasket. Let's move over here. Oh, these are the transmission oil cooler hoses. These go up on the front of the vehicle. Ordered a new Molly Bear thermostat, and these thermostats are, let's see, made in Germany. It says right there, made in Germany. Let's see, so the brake system, this is all ATE. This is actually, when I take off the wheels, and you will see that's actually what's on there right now. These are the original equipment manufacturers, and that's identical to what's currently on the car. However, these are all brand new. Guys, these are very expensive. These are the rear calipers for the wagon, and ATE just ran out of stock in these. Fortunately, I had a few on the shelf already. There's a little bit larger piston compared to the sedans. You can mount a sedan caliper, but this has a larger piston and has more clamping force. Here are the ATE brake hoses, rotors, pads. Let's move over here. What do I have? This is Limforder. These are made in Poland. These are original equipment manufacturer for Mercedes. That is the control rod bushing. Let's see, what do we have over here? Oh, so this is the lower control arm bushing. These are made by Phoebe, and you can see assembled in Germany from components of Germany, made in Germany. Let's see, what do we have over here? Let's see, oh, here's the, let's see, the drag link, and I think they make these in Italy. Oh, these are made in Turkey. Let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, these, the control, or the tie rods are made in Italy. No cheap Chinese stuff on this car, you guys. Now, Stabilus, that's the original equipment manufacturer for Mercedes. That's who made these for Mercedes. That's your steering shock, your steering stabilizer, made in Romania. And we got some ball joints, also Limforder. There's the upper control arms, also Limforder. And so you can see there's a mix of stuff from Mercedes and stuff from Limforder and other original equipment manufacturers. Again, no cheap Chinese parts on this car. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to need the leveling valve, the accumulators, and the axles. And we're going to start on the back of the car. All right, let's go ahead and get these old brake calipers off, and we're going to get the axles out because all this stuff is getting replaced. This is the original stuff, and this is just a 19 millimeter. There we go. That rotor has a lip on it. That's one of the reasons we're replacing it. So when you get a lip on your rotor, you just stick a little pry bar under there between the caliper and the rotor, like that, and then you can pry that off. Now, we're replacing all this back here, so it's okay if the rotors hang. Next thing I want to do is remove the 13 millimeter nut that screws in here and attaches to the axle. Okay, next we want to take this 13 millimeter bolt out of here. This actually goes into the axle and holds the axle into the hub. Now we're going to go ahead and take off this old rotor. There we go. And what we also want to do is get a little sanding pad, sand that original hub down real nice, and then put some anti-seize on there and clean that up and get rid of the surface rust that we see on it. But that's very common. That's normal to see on these vehicles. And you'll see there's a 13 millimeter bolt with a nice spacer. And that actually goes into the axle. So now we can pull that axle out when we get to that point. And we'll refinish and clean up this hub when we go to put the new rotors and calipers back on. And now I'm just inspecting there's the emergency brake pad. And I can see there's tons of meat left on there. See how thick that pad is? So no reason to change the emergency brake pad. Okay, the next thing we want to do is drain our diff, get the fluid out of there, and then remove our diff cover and also our diff mount. There's 4 bolts right up here. I'm not sure if you can see them. We'll take those bolts out and remove our diff cover, drain the differential fluid, and then pull out our C-clips so we can remove the axles. All right, and I do notice where previous maintenance had been done back here. I see these hoses, these fuel lines have been replaced. And also, that's a new SLS lever. That's a brand new, genuine Mercedes. I mean, yeah, that one looks brand new, like it was just put on there. The previous owners probably did that right before they sold it. So let's go ahead and get our differential fluid out of here. Okay, the diff fluid actually looks really nice. That's definitely been changed once before. Yeah, 15 millimeter. I think it's the only bolt on the car that's 15 millimeter. I don't know why these are 15 millimeter back here. So we'll get the diff bolts out of here, and we got to go all the way around. Okay, what we want to do now, we want to put our telescoping jack underneath the rear right here. Now here are the bolts we're going for. And guys, that's not rust up there. That's Cosmoline spray, where they would spray that all along the back of the car. There's no rust on this vehicle. That's a 13 millimeter, and there's also two right up there. We're going to undo those, and that will allow us to lower the differential and get access to the bolts up top. Now we can lower, once those bolts are out, we can lower our rear end. See, I'm lowering it down with our telescoping jack, and we can get access now to get the bolts out of the top. But I'll go get my catch pan here. All right, let's get that one out. And then we can clean up this diff cover in the parts washer and refinish it, repaint it. There we go. All right, let's inspect the diff, and I'm also gonna kind of brush out all this oil down here at the bottom. There's a little pocket at the bottom that it can sit in. And Mercedes didn't use a gasket. This was a machined surface. It was just machined, and they just put it up there. There was no gasket or no RTV, but I always like to use a little when I put it back together. All right, so let's see if we can rotate this diff around. I got it in neutral, so it's easy to turn. All right, perfect. Right here, right up in here, we have, there's a C-clip right there. See the orange painting on it and the little tab? And then there's one right there next to that spider gear. We're going to go ahead and pull those out, and then that releases the differential, or releases the axles. All right, here's how I like to do it. This is safety wire. It's like 0.30, 0.30 wire that we use to safety wire race car brakes and calipers and hubs. And it works perfect. Get my big head out of the way. You can put it right through the little loop right there. And then I just take a screwdriver handle and twist them around there. Like that. And I just pull them straight out. There we go. There is our C-clip. So let's get the other side out. All right, guys, what we have to do after we have the C-clips out of there, we have to raise the differential with our telescoping jack all the way up, as high as it will go till it touches the bottom of the car. Almost. All right, there we go. And that will allow us to get our axles out of here. Now I'm going to tap on this. This one here is a little stubborn, so I'm going to stick a block of wood in there and just tap on it. I usually use a cutoff broom handle. Okay, I use a little cutoff broom handle and stick it in there. There we go. See how that's coming out? All right, I think that side just came out. Yeah. There we go. Now I need to pull it out of the diff. Voila. There we have an original axle. We're going to send this off, have it rebuilt, and it'll be good as new. Not that it actually wasn't working, but it'll be good as new. Now you can see once I have that axle out, we have perfect access to the accumulator. And that's 1, 2, 3 nuts that come off some studs up there. We can pull out that accumulator off and actually put new accumulators. Now you don't have to take the axle out to do that, but we're replacing the axles with brand new axles anyway, so that's why I took it out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, get the other side out, and then we're going to tackle getting this accumulator out. And first we will disconnect the hard line here, then the hard line going to the hydraulic ram back here, and we'll just drop this out and we'll put some new stuff in here. All right, here we go. Here's the one that was on this side. Now, we want to make sure we put these spacers, let's see, yep, there's only one, back on the correct side. So what I'm going to do, we know that was the driver's side. So we're going to call this one the driver's side. And we're going to put our spacer back on there. All right, we put our spacer back on there, and I'm going to get a paint pen and mark driver's side, and then a big P, passenger side. Okay guys, you can see up in the right, I've got my 19mm wrench on the accumulator hose that goes to the hydraulic ram. But first, I want to relieve the pressure in the SLS system. So I'm going to crack this bleeder loose. There we go. And we're going to let any pressure out. That way it doesn't... Here we go. Let's see how much is in there. Okay, there you go. See it coming out? That is bleeding the pressure from the hydraulic system. And that'll make it a little less messy when we take out these accumulators. And we'll just let that, see it's draining into my cup here. We'll just let some of that pressure drain out of there. And we're also going to drain the system and fill it up with fresh hydraulic fluid. All right, I'm going to crack this loose, and you can see what I did earlier before bleeding the system and fluid squirted out. I was like, oh yeah, I should bleed the system. Still got a little in the lines. I got a catch can under here. All right, so we'll let that drain out into our catch can. All right, now this right here is an 11mm, and so we'll crack that line under here. Now these are line wrenches because I don't want to round off these fittings. So we can crack that loose. Let's come around from the other side. Okay, cool. Both of those lines are loose. So I'm going to disconnect these, and then we can take out our accumulator. There we go. And I'm going to take our banjo bolt out of here. That's a banjo fitting. And we want to replace these crush washers too. See, it has a copper crush washer on here. That's what allows it to seal. And now we have access to get to our accumulator. Nice. Nice little fun new toy. There we go. All right, and then we get our old accumulator out of there. All right, guys, here's our old original accumulator. I'm sure they'd been changed at some point. And these just shipped in from the Classic Center. These are, of course, made by Cortico, but Cortico is out of stock. So I ordered these from the Classic Center, and it has the Mercedes stamping on it. That's the difference between these and Cortico, because Cortico is the supplier for Mercedes. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and get the one out on the driver's side here. And then we're going to remove our original leveling valve. Okay guys, we're looking at the driver's side of the leveling valve. There's the differential. And you'll notice there's a bolt here and here. They're diagonal from each other. Those are what actually hold it to the bracket. This one here and here actually hold the valve together. So we only want to take these two off. Now, before we do that, we want to go up here and crack, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines loose, and then get this off the car. Take these lines off before we can take this valve off the car. Okay, the two small lines here, those are 11 millimeter. I got those cracked loose. Now these big ones here, I think those are 12 or 13. Let me get the correct wrench. Okay, we're gonna try a 12. It's weird, the differential uses some 15 millimeter. Yep, it's a 12, so let's crack this loose. Now notice guys, these are line wrenches. See how they go all the way around almost? That is so you don't strip brake lines or lines like this. Let's get that on here. Oh, cool. Those broke. These cars out of the West Coast or down south, the fittings just don't rust. But those northern cars, man, doing this simple task like this can be an absolute nightmare due to corrosion. And that's just really why I don't buy cars from that part of the country. Okay, after about even 10 minutes or so, I've got all those lines off. And now we want to go ahead, take the 2 bolts that hold in the, take the 2 bolts out that hold in the SLS valve. There's one. All right. Beautiful. Okay, we need to go to the bench, and this is an adapter for the brake, for the hydraulic line, and so is this. We need to remove these. I think they're brass fittings. Yeah, they appear to be brass. We need to remove those and transfer them to our new SLS valve. Okay, guys, you can see we have our valve in the vise. I've already broken this top one loose, and that's just an adapter. These don't go bad. That's why you can transfer them. Of course, I'm going to clean it up in the parts washer. And here's the other one. That's a 17 millimeter. And just, there you go. Okay, this is where my OCD kind of kicks in. I'm here at the parts washer. And in here in this cup, I have all the bolts, all the hardware that we just removed from the rear of the vehicle. And I just want to clean all that up really good. And check that out. You just put it in the parts washer for a minute. That's a little piece of Scotch-Brite. And they look brand new again. So let me go ahead and get the rest of these cleaned up, and then let's start reassembly. Okay, when I actually clean this up, the factory markings, the yellow paint they would put on there to say that they like torque the bolts down at the factory, that came back. So let's get this dried off and then respray it, repaint it. And I'm also inspecting, there's a bushing back here, rubber diff bushing. There you go, you can see, I mean, that's just like the casting, that little flaky stuff there. But there is absolutely zero deterioration in this rubber isolator bushing that goes around here. So absolutely no need to replace that. Now, when I paint this, I'm actually not going to paint this area here. I want that yellow marking to stay there. But we do want to clean it up with acetone and get it good and dry. And before I start reassembly of all this on the rear, this is just acetone. Acetone is a great solvent. It gets rid of grease. I mean, you name it. Acetone's awesome. I use it on just about everything. But before I reassemble everything, I also want to clean all that rear suspension with acetone, get it really nice and dry and clean. And I also want to repaint it the original factory black. The black paint is really still on there, but it's just dirty, and I'm so OCD about my suspension parts, you know, being as clean as the rest of the car. So we're going to finish cleaning this up. We'll spray it. Oh, look how clean that breather valve came out. Nice. And then we'll paint it, and then we'll start cleaning on the rear. I'll refinish that, and then we'll come back to the video. All right, guys, I've only started cleaning a little bit on this control arm here. This is acetone, and you can already see there's the original factory green. See that green paint here and the paint right there? And it's revealing all those original factory markings. So just an observation while I'm cleaning, it's green paint over here, and I started on the driver's side, and you can see it's red paint. So on the assembly line, green must have meant passenger, red must have meant driver, and it made it easy for the workers to grab the right control arm. Okay, just got everything cleaned up with acetone, just letting it all dry before I refinish it. And there is the before shot. And there we go, guys. There's after refinishing. And I made sure I preserved, see the red mark over here and the original factory green markings over here. And that just looks way better. The suspension is now refinished back to how it would have been originally. Looks very clean. And over here the diff cover is still drying, but I made sure I didn't paint over the original yellow markings right there from the factory. But that's still drying. Once it dries, it'll calm down on the gloss a little bit. All right, so next it is time to see up there. Doesn't that look nice? That's how they came from the factory. So let's go ahead and reinstall the accumulator. I'll show you how to put one in, get the lines back in, and then we're going to get our axles. Actually, next we'll do the leveling valve, and then we'll do the axles and diff cover last. Not sure if that comes out on the camera because it's kind of dark. Also cleaned and refinished the fuel tank. Cleaned and refinished the original muffler. There we go. Back to its original factory semi-gloss. Just looks fantastic under here. Taking the protective cap off of our accumulator. And we'll go ahead, get it oriented up here. And we're going to put just one nut on to hold it in place. And you see right here, on this single side, Mercedes actually installed a washer over here. So it's two nuts in the back and then a washer and a nut on this side. Doesn't that look nice? I love new parts. Now we want to get this reattached here. Actually, let's put our hard line in first. And you want to get this threaded, guys, you don't want to cross thread it. So you want to make sure it's a straight shot up into there. Just like that. Nailed it. All right, now we want to get our new crush washers and our banjo bolt. All right, so when you're putting the crush washers on, here's the crush washer. There's one already on the bolt here. I'll put that one through. And we want to put the other one on the other side. Then we come up here. And this top one is a 17. I think earlier in the video I might have accidentally said it was a 19. Now I don't want it to rub against the frame there, or the rear subframe. So I'm going to pull down a little bit on it. There we go. All right, that is tight. And of course, when we fire everything back up, we will come under here and check for leaks. So I want to dry it off real good. All right, very nice. All right, let me knock out the other side, and then let's put the leveling valve on. All right, remember those adapter fittings for the lines? We need to get these installed on our new leveling valve, because it is aluminum. There we go. And let's pop out our cap up here, and we'll put, remember this one was the fine thread. There we go. Now we want to put in our bleeder. So we need to take the bleeder out of the old one and put it right here. So let's go ahead and get our cap off of here. Clean it up in the parts washer. And we'll just thread it right into here. And there was no thread sealant or anything on it when it was removed, so we're not putting anything back on. And keep in mind, this is aluminum. There we go. That's all we want to do. All right, guys, we're gonna put this back up there. We got to get these bolts tight first before we can connect the valves. And so I'm gonna loosely, you got to get the lines kind of out of the way to get these bolts in here. Sometimes that's a little tricky. Okay, there's one in there. There we go, put them right there. Move them a little bit more. There we go. All right, now I need to torque those down, and then we can proceed to put our fittings back in here. I'm just gonna try to give them a little bit started. Okay, now I've left this, let's see, this line goes to the accumulator on the left side. I've left that one loose. That will allow us to more easily thread it here, and then we'll go tighten it back on the back side once it's threaded. All right, we just need to get a socket on here. All right, that one's tight. Now let's get the one on the bottom. All right, that one's tight. Now we're going to attempt to thread these, and this can be very tricky. My camera died, so you didn't get to see me cussing to get all these little hydraulic lines threaded correctly, but you got to do that carefully so you don't strip them. So we have our brand new leveling valve, all the lines installed, brand new accumulators, all these are plumbed, and all the lines are installed. Refinished the suspension in the semi-gloss black. Now let's get our axles in, put the diff cover on, and then I'm going to reattach our leveling valve rod, and then we're going to move over to the brakes. Remember, we marked our differential passenger side, and we put our spacer back on here. So first we're going to put it, there we go, right in there. And now we need to lift the differential up in the air in order to get this one to have clearance to go in the outer hub. So let's get the telescoping jack and lift that up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this side in. We make sure our spacer's on there. It's always a little trickier on this side. Okay, we have both of them loosely in there. And actually, while the diff is down, before I lift it up to put the outsides in, I'm going to go ahead and put my C-clips back in the axles. So you can see the C-clip, this one can come in a little bit more. There we go. C-clips goes right there and right there. So let's put those in real quick. All right, I know you guys probably can't see up in there, but basically I've got a little punch and my Ford tool, and we're just going to get the C-clip. We're going to get it into position, and then I'm going to use that little punch to just tap it on in there. Boom. All right, we got both C-clips in there. There you go, guys. That's what we were doing. See how that C-clip is around the end of the axle, and that one is around the end of the axle on that side. Kind of tricky to get those in there. Okay, now we need to raise the diff all the way up. High as we can go. And that's going to give room to get these axles in. All right, that should give us plenty of clearance. You can see the end of the axle over here. All right, there we go. That side's in. All right, I just rolled this one in. There we go. Now, let's lower the diff down, and that'll, see there's a little gap right here. If we lower the diff, then it'll take out the slack and push the axles into the hub. All right, if it's a little stubborn, I'll get a little wooden dowel, put it right here, and just tap it in the rest of the way. And here's that wooden dowel. It's just a cut off broom handle. See how that drove it in the rest of the way? Now we need to put our retaining bolts and spacers on the outsides. Okay, here I'm on the outside. See, there's the end of our axle. So, and guys, don't worry about the surface rust on that hub. We're going to sand that down and clean it up and then put some anti-seize on it. All right, so this is a steel spacer, and that goes in here right into the hole on the end of the axle. Well, the steel spacer goes around the bolt. And then it goes right, you got a feel for it. There it is. And I think that's a 13 millimeter, so we'll snug that down. Let me go put the one in on the other side, and then we'll snug these down. All right, here's a 13 millimeter. There we go. All right, axles are in. Starting to look like a new car under here. Brand new axles, refinished control arms, brand new axle boots, accumulators, new leveling valve. All right, let's go ahead and get our diff cover on. All right, guys, keep in mind Mercedes did not use any sealant around the diff cover. It was a machined surface. I'm going to use a little sealant because I like to do it that way. It just gives me peace of mind. But from the factory, they didn't have sealant. So I'm just going to clean this off with brake cleaner. Make sure it's very smooth and dry and clean. And then we're going to put a little gray RTV, a little gray silicone, and just smear a light little dab around there. All right, guys, we're going to use the Permatex gray RTV, and just going to smear it around here. You don't need to go crazy. But yeah, this will ensure absolutely no leaks back here. There we go. All right, let me get the diff cover. All right, we're just going to lift this right up here and go straight on to the holes. And I'm going to put a bolt right down here to hold it at the bottom. I'm going to put one right over here. There we go. And I'm going to go around, put all these in, and get them torqued down. And then we can refill our diff fluid and move to the brakes. Put our nice cleaned up diff cap in there. Doesn't that look good, you guys? Okay, guys, that's a pretty decent shot there. So, well, let me show you. We have our diff cover back on. You can see that RTV squirted out along the edges. That's all sealed back up and the bolts are torqued. Now, right there, you can see this diff mount needs to go up and bolt back in. So we need to raise the differential now. And you see it raising back up to the car. And those holes should line right back up where they came down from. Yep, and they did. So the bolts that go up here actually require blue Loctite. So let me get the Loctite. All right, we'll just try to get these started by hand. And you can see, just put a little blue Loctite on there. And you don't want to cross thread these, so go ahead and get them started by hand. Okay guys, I have our diff mount securely fastened, and now we can go ahead and lower our telescoping jack and our diff will stay in place. There we go. New axles are installed. Diff is mounted. Doesn't that look nice, guys? New accumulators. But we're not stopping yet. Let's get the leveling valve rod installed and get these nasty old brakes off of here. All right, guys, now keep in mind the suspension is drooping right now. So this leveling valve is going to appear to be drooping. You know, so it's going to go through that bar there, and this arm's not going to be level. But when we put it on the ground and we get weight back on it, this is going to level out. I've actually got some brand new lock nuts, M6 by 1.0. That's what it takes. And I'm actually going to put a lock nut on here so we don't need the lock washer. Man, it looks good under here. I love new parts. Okay, that's not going anywhere. Okay, guys. We are done and ready to move to the brakes. Okay, before I move to the brakes, I'm going to go ahead and put some fresh differential fluid in here, differential oil. And guys, you don't need to use anything fancy. This is just your standard, here we go, Napa 80W90 gear oil. You don't put any fancy stuff in there. It's just 80W90 old school gear oil. And you just fill it until the oil comes out of the drain, out of the fill plug, out of the fill hole. So you just got to sit here and keep pumping. This is like doing push-ups. Your arms get so tired doing this. All right, guys, see it starting to come out of the fill hole there. That is the sign that your diff is full. And then you just cap it. And we'll clean up our mess. Tighten that down, and then we're done. We have our beautiful new axles, new accumulators, refinish the suspension, install the leveling valve, refinish the diff. Got that all bolted back up in there. New accumulator. Really looks nice under here. Now, someone actually already replaced the sway bar end links. Those have already been put on, I guess, by the previous owner. Let's see. Yeah, you can see them right there. Those are new. So we didn't need to change those. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to get some sandpaper, sand this down, get it nice and smooth, apply some anti-seize to it, and then we'll mount up our new brake hoses, new brake calipers, new rotors, and new brake pads. So let's go ahead and get started. And first thing I want to do is clean up the surface rust on the hub, and that's normal. That just comes from your calipers. That's just a 100 grit sanding pad. All right, guys, that's really all you need to do there. All right, next thing we want to do is, so the next guy that does the rotors down the road doesn't get them stuck, we're just going to put some anti-seize on here. We'll just put that on like that, brush it around there, Now we want to go ahead and get the old brakes and brake lines off of here. Okay, I've already cracked this one loose. You can see it dripping a little bit. And guys, I just put a little cap over the end of my new line, and we're going to immediately put on the new line as soon as this one comes off. And this is an 11 millimeter. All right, there we go. Let's get our new line. And we'll just put that right up in here. There we go. We have that threaded. All right, let's get our new caliper on here. There we go. That's the right caliper. Now ATE gives us all brand new hardware. And guys, you can see this is the exact OEM original caliper that was on the car. Identical. So they give us all new hardware, so we don't need any of the hardware from this caliper. We'll tighten it down once it's on the car. All right, so let's go ahead and put our rotor on now, and then we'll slip this new caliper over there. All right, guys, here is the new ATE rotor, exactly what came off the car. So there is a dowel pin right, you can see the small dowel right there. That's our alignment dowel. And we'll just go ahead, slide that guy on. There we go. And ATE provides new mounting bolts, and they already put the Loctite on from the factory. So we'll just loosely get this caliper mounted. There we go. All right, now I need to get the torque wrench and torque those down. There we go. All right, perfect. Okay, now that that caliper's on, I can torque my line in the back, and it's going to cause that to twist a little bit, but we can adjust it from up top. There we go. Then tighten that one back down. All right, there we go. Perfect. Okay, now let's put in, there we go, ATE brake pads. Original equipment for these cars, guys. We're going to slide those back here and right there. ATE provides new mounting hardware, and what these are, I guess you'd call them pins, retaining pins, but on the end they have like a little lead crush washer, and when you tap this in, that crush washer it'll crush and then hold the retaining bracket in place. Let me show you how that works. You just stick this guy up here, and we put one pin through there, goes through the other side. Push our bracket down there. Put our other pin in. There we go. All right, now we got to tap these in with a little punch, and let me show you how to do that. Okay, you can see the little pin sticking out here. Here's a punch, and you just put it on the end right there. See how it went in and stuck through the other side? And that little lead washer compressed. And there we go. Those are now in there. And we're done with the brakes on the driver's side. Doesn't that look nice, guys? All right, let's go knock out the passenger side, and then we're done. Okay, guys, we are finally done with the rear end. New rotors, new calipers, new pads, new brake hoses, new axles, new accumulators, new leveling valve, refinished all the suspension. That is beautiful. Also refinished the fuel tank, refinished the original muffler. That's what you want, you guys. This setup back here will be good for many, many years to come. All right, guys, that is it for this video. Now I got to go in and edit like 120 video clips to make this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next video, we're going to move to the front of the car and start on the front suspension. And you can see our parts up here are slowly getting cleared off the table for the Orient Red wagon. Take care.